Talk radio, where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, there are rated out people to keep and bear arms, especially on a red shirt Monday. Right, Jose?
Can't it get any redder than that?
That's as red a shirt as I've ever had, I think, yeah. Okay, so let's check out and see what we got on the card today. This is an article from Candid. GMH, as you were. And I grabbed the wrong one here. Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, here's the editorial. I grabbed something from the card. Yeah, this is something that we touched on last week. In fact, we spent a fair amount of time on it. The Daily News editorial, our view, cannabis testing doesn't reflect workplace safety issues. And it goes like this. The Responsible Cannabis User Protection Act, a proposal to end cannabis testing for job applicants, was recently introduced by Senator William Parkinson, also known as Senator Won't Parkinson. The bill, if passed, would prevent employers, landlords, colleges, and government agencies from requiring cannabis testing as a condition for employment, housing, education, or services. Parkinson said the measure would break down barriers to employment since employers regularly come up short looking for new hires, while at the same time a large number of working-age people are unemployed. There are problems with the bill, but there are even larger problems with cannabis testing. Now, we're going to turn this into another critical thinking exercise like we did last week. While marijuana use is legal on Guam, it is still against federal law, and employers have the right to a drug-free workplace. In fact, for some positions, drug testing is required under federal law. Bill 6-37 provides an exception for situations where testing is required by the federal government. During testimony on the bill, Catherine DeKnight Gale, Executive Director of the Employers Council, a nonprofit helping business owners comply with workplace regulations, said many employers would rather not conduct drug testing at all, as it costs a lot and it's time-consuming. But companies have to ensure workplace safety. Unfortunately, cannabis testing doesn't address workplace safety issues. Unlike alcohol testing, cannabis testing doesn't determine if someone is under the influence. It detects whether cannabis has been used in the last 30 days or so. So if someone has used cannabis responsibly...
Oh, sorry, I turned my mic on.
I thought that was your editorial comment.
It could have been.
Yeah.
But I accidentally turned the mic on.
Because I noticed...
Strategically placed cough.
I remember last week you and I weren't exactly in sync on this issue.
No, but for different reasons, but I'll try to refrain from coughing on mic.
All right. Well, your cough was well taken, Jose. And I have only one response for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see your cough and raise you 2 coughs. So if someone has used cannabis responsibly or medicinally, the test will only show that they used cannabis at some point in the last month. It won't show if they're under the influence. It won't show if cannabis use contributed to an accident. It won't determine if someone poses a risk to workplace safety. Mayors showed support for the bill because they want to be able to hire good people who legally use cannabis. The problem is the local law is not in line with federal law, so cannabis use is not entirely legal. And until testing can determine if someone is under the influence, it doesn't make sense to equate cannabis testing with workplace safety. I'm going to go back to the penultimate paragraph, Jose, and then I'm going to give you the opportunity to make a sound in your microphone, preferably something a little more involved than a cough.
All right.
So if someone has used cannabis responsibly or medicinally, the test will only show that they've used cannabis at some point in the last month. It won't show if they're under the influence. It won't show if cannabis use contributed to an accident. It won't determine if someone poses a risk to workplace safety. But as I recall the last time we went through this, you said an employer should have the right to test for cannabis, right? You want to elaborate a little bit?
Well, this is the thing right now. It's, what do they call it? What class drug is it in the federal government? Class 1 drug, which means it really hasn't been tested or experimented or anything like that that has any kind of quantitative results or something that we can refer to, like this editorial doesn't. So we don't have no idea what the effects are like. And I know there's a lot of anecdotal evidence out there. I have a lot of friends who use recreational marijuana. I'm not even sure about the medicinal part because we don't have that kind of clinic here on Guam. But this is kind of an interesting editorial to put out there what it doesn't do when they have nothing to back it up except for what? Their friends' statements, the editorial's own use or anecdotal use. So I think a responsible use of marijuana, and if you want a position or a job, is not to use it until that becomes legal or it can be tested or it can be verified. That's the responsible thing.
Well, I haven't studied this, but I suspect that there is sound medical evidence that would show that if you smoke marijuana on day 1, on day 20, you're not under the influence of marijuana.
I would say that also, that not directly under the influence, but again, we don't know these long-term effects. We have anecdotal evidence, and we have the stereotypical evidence of the usual pothead, right? Mm-hmm. And that's just a pejorative, but we don't have this. Can somebody in the workplace, in certain positions, maybe not all positions, can work diligently while still having this chemical in their system? Because you don't have to be drunk to be affected by alcohol at work. It could still be in your system, but you can have a hangover. You can be not working properly. You just don't know.
Well, if that's the case, then what is the proper response with respect to the laws of the land if you don't know?
That's a good question, but I think we rushed to this just because it was very popular and it was a very good campaign platform to run on. Because look at the mess it is right now, the commission. I don't think people really know what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The public posture of this whole thing has really been screwed up because, there's a certain element that thinks it's kind of cool to say, yeah, well, let's go smoke a joint somewhere. And there has been a glorification of the use of marijuana that I think is perhaps not the wisest thing we could do. People who should know better should have just shut up instead of glorifying marijuana use.
There's kind of a weird thought and mentality in my head, though, that I'm okay with the marijuana use, but I'm also okay with it still being illegal because it was one of those drugs that nobody really paid attention to it, in the sense that you don't see these massive busts like they used to, right? Because it's been kind of mainstream, but one of those it's an enforceable law, but cops weren't really enforcing it the way that they would enforce other drug use or something.
Yeah.
But when it became mainstream like this and glorified, it just seems to take a different direction for me. And that's why I'm looking at this. Why are we pushing so hard for a small group of people to get into a job position? I say life choices.
Yeah, well, I've gone into this in some length in my own opinion is this. It's Schedule 1, which means there is no acceptable use for it. That's what Schedule 1 means. And that's why there's no research. Now, I think that's kind of self-contradictory. But, there's no research showing that there's any use for it. Well, why hasn't there been any research? Well, because Schedule 1, you can't do research on Schedule 1. Yeah, it's tautological. So what my position is, let's get it off Schedule 1. Let's do some research. Let's find out what it's about. If there's a medicinal use for it, fine. We know how to deal with that. We have a Food and Drug Administration. Just plug it in there. And that's as far as I want to go. We have enough problem with drugs already. We went through hell with heroin back in the 70s. And we're going through hell with methamphetamine right now. Now, I know the defenders are going to say, yeah, but, grass is not like that. Grass is no worse than beer. Well, maybe not. But I still don't see any sense in adding one more mind-altering substance to a society that's already overwhelmed by drugs. When we talked about this last time, I said, I sided with you as a practical matter, Jose, because as an employer, I would prefer to have people who don't use marijuana at all, because I have read up on it, and I do know what the long-term effects of it are. No one ever accused any regular marijuana smoker of being too ambitious or too much attention to detail, etc. I think you're probably going to get a better quality across the board. You're going to get harder working employers if they don't use marijuana. And if I'm in business to make money. I'm not in business to pander to people who use drugs that I like or crusade in favor of some kind of a drug or something like that. Now, on the other hand, I do think we need to engage in critical thinking sometimes. And on the other hand, I'm really down on statism. I think the state should exercise the absolute minimum amount of control over citizens as is necessary. And as you are well aware, my idea of good government is an effective, efficient government that provides basic services in accordance with the rule of law on at least a break-even basis. Well, I don't know that as you were basic government services includes requiring employers to test for a drug that may not have a workplace safety dimension. And then I went a little bit in the direction of the logical fallacy known as reductio ad absurdum, which means let's take this out a couple of notches and see how it works. So let's say that I work at Bob's Vegetarian Kitchen, and we're all vegans over at Bob's. We don't want no meat. In fact, our employees wear canvas belts, canvas shoes. We don't have any. I better not see anybody haul out a leather billfold when I'm on the job. That's how we are. So one of our work rules is we don't allow our employees to eat meat. Oh, you mean so when they come to work? Well, there's no meat to eat anyhow, so even if they have lunch on the job, that's not a problem, is it, Bob? Well, you don't understand. We don't allow them to eat meat at all. Well, what about at home? You mean they can't eat meat at home? Not if they want to keep their job. How do you enforce that? Well, we have developed this test where, we can take a blood sample, and by measuring the amount of protein in the blood, we can tell if our employees have been eating meat. And if they've been eating meat, they're out on their butts. Would that be okay?
I can appreciate the analogy. It's not okay, but it's the same thing. I'm seeing this in the comments. People doing the whataboutism about sugar or other things people ingest that cause harm. I don't think, I'm not sure what the term is or what the, how to define it, but those kind of analogies aren't congruent, comparing sugar to a drug. But I see the point, though, because how can you regulate something outside that's a normal everyday thing? Now I can see regulating meat not being brought to the business. But again, how do you regulate a drug use or alcohol use or even cigarettes, right? Mm-hmm. What if you're a gymnasium, and you don't allow your employees to smoke? Do your employees represent the business outside of the business place, outside of hours? And we've seen cases like that where people have been fired on social media doing their own personal stuff, but it represented the business, so they got canned.
Yeah, well, as I said, it is reductio ad absurdum, and like all analogies, it's not an exact fit. That's why it's an analogy, right? But I think it does explore an important area of statism. Just how much power do we give the state? And when we start talking about individual rights, what kind of right can the state condone that gets that far into people's lives? Now, I mentioned this to Reef Pete on the phone the other day with respect to the same framework. Couldn't we get there with substantive due process? Now, I've gone into Griswold versus Connecticut before. Griswold versus Connecticut was the Supreme Court case that said that Connecticut could not outlaw the use of birth control devices by married couples. And you can search the Constitution top to bottom, and the tag was right to privacy. The word privacy appears as often in the U.S. Constitution as prohibited appears in Rory Respicio's reading of the FOIA law, right? It just isn't there. So the Supreme Court just made it up. And they said, well, the right of privacy exists in the emanations and penumbras of the Bill of Rights and the penumbras of even the Third Amendment. The Third Amendment says you can't quarter troops. You can't be forced to quarter troops in your house in time of war. The penumbra of the Third Amendment and the Fourth, search and seizure and so on. And that was the right of privacy. Well, that comes from this part of the 14th Amendment, which I will get out one more time. Well, the 5th and the 14th. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. 14th Amendment, same thing. So life we can understand. Well, many of us can. A lot of us can't, right? And property we can understand. But liberty, what does that mean? What do we mean by liberty? And the courts have run wild with this, and that's where the whole idea of substantive due process comes from. And it's been conservative, it's been liberal. I think it was 1909 in a case called Lochner versus New York. The Supreme Court struck a New York statute that said, the New York statute said it is illegal for an employer to employ a woman in a bakery for more than 60 hours per week. Regulation, right? And the Supreme Court said, nope, can't do that because those women have liberty of contract, as do the bakers. And this is kind of where substantive due process came from. So if we were going to look at this as substantive due process, what it goes back to is histories and traditions and things like that. But if the state would regulate conduct, then there has to be some kind of demonstrable, proper purpose that the state is going to give life to with that regulation. It can't be just more than we think this is a good idea. And I suspect that if, of course, the Dobbs decision just about drove a wooden stake through the heart of substantive due process. But I think if you analyzed it under those bases, all these statutes that are well, it's not statutory. There's no state actor here. But I think a case for wrongful termination could be based. I'm not saying it's a winning case or something like that, but I think the important thing here is to think these things through. Otherwise, we fall in the same trap that people in government employing fall and judges fall into, and that is, I've got the power to do this, so I'm going to use my power to enact my own personal preferences. And that's why we want judges to cite to the Constitution or statutes, not, I'm a judge here, or we 5 justices on the United States Supreme Court have decided amongst ourselves, this is a really good idea, you can't do it. That's kind of the way the law is supposed to function. And when I read this editorial, I thought, this is a good way for you to turn on the Law and Order notebook so we can get into this little exercise in critical thinking once again. So I'm going to give the Daily News a star today, Jose. Not because of what I like, not because I agree with what they say. I'm still thinking this one through. My personal opinion is, as an employer, I don't want any marijuana users on my staff. And it's my company. It's my fortune that's at risk. I don't want the government coming along telling me what I can and can't do to regulate employment. And on the other hand, we have 5 fingers and a thumb.
Oh, and employment is just like letting the market decide, too. If nobody's going to want to work for you, what are you going to do? Exactly,
yeah. But it actually was a thought-provoking editorial for the first time in how long?
Long time. Is this appropriate to say it's not what they say?
Yeah, I think that would work, Jose. Yeah, we can always have to analyze not only on what people do, but what they should have done, right? All right, let's see who I've got in the green room here today. R. James wants to talk about pot. Go ahead, R. James.
How's it going, Bob? Well, it's not just pot, but any of it. Look, let's put all. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know all the legal ins and outs. Look at this from a very simple couple of questions and a very simple couple of answers. Number one, is it a mind-altering substance? The answer is yes, it is. Number two, is it a mood-altering substance? The answer is yes, it is. Question number three, does it have an effect on the ability for a human to have a different type of mental or physical reaction, i.e. somebody driving under the influence and everything's going in slower motion than it should be? And the answer is yes, it does. Okay, so if you take those 3 facts, don't take my word for it, do a Google search. Take those 3 facts along with the fact that it's still not legal under federal statute. It is still listed, as you mentioned, as a class 1. Then what you just mentioned a few minutes ago about judges and politicians should be following the law and should be applying some of that almost impossible to find common sense these days. I think that's a very good case of just because you have the power doesn't mean that you should use the power for that particular thing. And I'm sorry, I might have misunderstood, but I thought all these years, I thought we were, especially in the, in GovGuam, I thought we were supposed to have a zero tolerance, zero drugs workplace.
Well, we do, and that's what
I thought we were supposed to.
we do, and that's what Wade Parkinson wants to change.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he wants to change.
So here's one of those what ifs or what could be's. Okay, so let's say that they make marijuana legal. Let's say that they make it illegal for an employer to test. And as an employer, I can tell you right now, whether it's illegal or not, if I want to hire someone that I know is a marijuana user, I have, as an employer, every right to make the decision and say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take a chance, and I'm going to go ahead and hire this person. Or I can say, yeah, no, maybe not. Okay, and I don't care what one of these ignorant politicians, I can't call them ignorant because they're all supposedly got an education. I don't care what one of these nonsense politicians is going to tell me that I can or can't do, because here's what's going to happen. If you have a delivery driver that works for Coca-Cola, or you have an equipment operator that's working for you out on a job site, and there's an accident, and that person is tested, okay, maybe the officer that rolls up on the scene, maybe he doesn't know or doesn't think he's under the influence of marijuana. Maybe he's thinking that the guy might be under the influence of alcohol because his attitude is way too mellow and laid back, and his reactions are not what, a normal cognitive person would have. So he says, yeah, well, we're going to do a field sobriety test, and then that leads him to believe that maybe they should do a blood test, and it doesn't come back alcohol, it comes back marijuana.
But that won't show whether he was under the influence at the time of the accident. That's the point.
Yeah, but it's gonna come up in a toxicology report, and then when the employer, i.e., the company, gets drug, and maybe they can't arrest him. Okay, legally, marijuana is legal. Okay, they can't arrest him legally under criminal charges, but then when the company gets drug into a civil lawsuit, that's where it's going to end up at, and that's going to happen. It's not if, it's when, because just because somebody didn't quote unquote break the law and commit a quote unquote crime doesn't mean you can't take them to court and sue them for it civilly. People are getting sued in civil court like 7, 8, 9, 10 days a week now, because somebody out there is a sharp attorney and they think, oh, well, just because they didn't break the law, it doesn't mean that they don't have any responsibility to it. So then a company's going to end up getting drug into a criminal suit, and there really wasn't even a law to substantiate it. I mean, it just opens the door to Pandora's box, too many what ifs and maybes. And I'm going to reference back to something that you said a few minutes ago, and I totally agree with it. Look, we got way too many people drinking and driving, and alcohol is legal. Okay? Why do we need to start opening the door to other mind and mood-altering substances when we've already got enough problems with what we've got? Do we really need more? That's common sense, and that's my opinion on it. That's my point of view.
Well,
everybody else can go pound stand. That's what I'm going to think.
Yeah,
whether they like it or not.
Well, I'm with you some of the way, but the points that you make would work for alcohol just as well as for marijuana, because there's no way to test to find out if someone is at this moment under the influence of marijuana. There is a way to test and find if someone is under the influence of alcohol. So the fact that you can't test for marijuana takes an awful lot of steam out from under your argument as far as safety is concerned, because you could say the same thing for alcohol. I drank a whole case of beer last weekend, but I'm fine now.
Sure, but the fact that it's still a Schedule I and it's still illegal on the federal side of things. I think Jose mentioned it a little earlier. When in doubt, fall back on yeah, probably just not a good idea to do it. Just sidestep them. Don't tap dance through the minefield. Just avoid it, and then it's one less problem to worry.
But the other side of this is that I'm really hung up on my anti-statist attitude. And I don't like to see the state get involved in anything unless it's leading to, unless it's basic services. And I don't see the state regulating off the clock conduct unless there's a really sound reason for it. And that's my hang up on this whole marijuana testing, because the only thing that the marijuana piss test finds is metabolites of marijuana in the system. That is, that the marijuana was used and was metabolized. But it doesn't mean that a person is under the influence at this minute. And I don't like the state getting into regulating conduct unless there's a pretty clear reason for it. My own personal preferences should never be the basis for state regulation. So I think you laid it out. I'm not going to go pack sand, but the next time you call, I'm for sure going to put you on the air. Okay. Thanks for calling. We got to take a short break here, and we'll come back to our Carl, who wants to talk about marijuana.
Well, hello. Ray Gibson here to tell you it's officially Frontier season at Nissan Guam. Go test drive a new Frontier and own one with no money down. Plus, Nissan will make the first 3 payments for you. You'll love your new Frontier as much as I do mine. Plus, they're giving away cash, all sorts of prizes. Way too much to share in a 30-second commercial, so visit the showroom or visit the website, nissanguam.com today.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Yeah, okay. Well, I took a peek here at some of the Facebook comments, and I think a lot of people are, maybe I'm not explaining it clearly enough. Maybe I see a lot of people are missing my point. The point is not, gosh, marijuana is such a wonderful thing, alcohol is more dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. It's the proper role of the government with respect to the conduct of the citizens. That's what I want to concentrate on. I don't really care about what a wonderful drug marijuana is. And if it is, then you know that my stance is let's take it off Schedule 1, and if it is, then let's regulate it like we do every other drug at the Food and Drug Administration. But as per my chat with what's his name? God, I just talked.
R. James.
Yeah, with R. James. As my own approach to things is, we got enough drugs already. Why do we need to enable the use of another drug? I don't see the logic in it. And you probably have a hard time convincing me that it's really a great idea. Maybe we should be passing it out in this. Well, anyhow, let's find out what the most dangerous man in the room has to say on this subject.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob.
Hi.
Good afternoon, Jose, and your Tall Tales listening audience.
Are you the one they call Ron McNinch?
What's that?
Are you the one they call Ron McNinch?
Are
you the one they call Ron McNinch?
Ron McNinch.
Ron McNinch. Go. I put Ron online. Go ahead and tell us, Ron. Half a day, Guam. Half a day, Bob. Half a day, Guam. You're just talking to me. and you and I will have a chat, and it'll go on to international radio listening audience. But remember, one of the rules of engagement is no hostile takeovers, etc. But anyhow, go ahead and tell me what you wanted to tell me.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you about mind-altering substances. I read a book one time that said there was over 200 mental biases built into our brains, so I don't see the point in, how would you say, skewing our view of reality even more than it already is. But I wanted to bring up something, and for your comment, see what you think. Before my son went into the Air Force, one of the things he was warned about is marijuana use, and he was told that even if you don't use marijuana, if you're in a room or a group of people who are using it, you can breathe in enough of the marijuana smoke to possibly register, as you mentioned, the marijuana metabolites, that are being that have been broken down and show up in your bloodstream, and it's possible, he was told, to have that register on a drug test. So that he was warned, be careful who you're around, and he could lose his career if he hung around in the wrong environment. But what's your opinion about that? Is that something that is? What do you think about that warning?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I just thought it was kind of unique in that someone could lose their career over not using a drug, but just being in an environment where the drug happens to be, the smoke happens to be circulating in the air. I was just concerned about his future in the Air Force if he hung around the wrong crowd. But he doesn't do that kind of stuff. He tends to hang around gyms. So I didn't think there was a problem. But I just wondered if you had an opinion one way or the other. I'd never heard that until my son brought it up. But I just wanted to toss that out
I've seen some articles that say if poppy seed rolls.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, if you eat too many poppy seed rolls, you can test positive for opium. So a person got to be a little careful in this world that we live in that's becoming more and more drug-oriented.
Yeah, doing something that seemingly innocent, could possibly risk their career in the military. So I just found that interesting, and I didn't know if you had, an opinion one way or the other. But anyway, thanks for giving your comments on it. I was just figured I'd toss it out there for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, well, when it comes to having an opinion, my opinion is that I have an opinion on everything, Carl.
I've noticed that.
All right, talk to you later.
All right.
And let's see, we got somebody else trying in the green room here trying to get in. It's Repeat, and Repeat wants to talk about marijuana. Tell me more, Repeat.
Apropos that you say you call it the green room. No, actually, I was listening to Carl, and he's talking about what's called a contact high. And, of course, when you get drug tested, the levels come back. And, like, for DEA agents and stuff like that, there are certain tolerances that you could have. But, obviously, if you're not a law enforcement agent dealing with drugs, then you shouldn't be having any contact highs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it reminds me of a couple of cases I had when I was in the military. One guy, I was prosecuting a guy who claimed that he popped hot for opioids because he ate poppy seed muffins or bagels that morning.
Uh-huh.
And so I called the doctor, and the doctor testified on my behalf, and he said, yeah, that's possible. You can get positive with poppy seeds, but it would have to be about 7 dump truck loads of just the poppy seeds, not the bagels, for him to achieve the levels that he had in his test. So we're like, okay, dude, try again. You fail. And then the other one was a similar situation to like what Carl was mentioning. I had a client, this time I was a defense attorney, and they had a random drug test. So he admitted before the drug test that he had smoked a joint at a marijuana joint at a party over the weekend. You know, they did a surprise drug test on Monday morning. Well, his test comes back, and guess what? Negative. So he admitted, and he wasn't. If he would have just kept his mouth shut, nothing would have happened. But he still got processed out. The fact that he didn't test positive, but he admitted that he willfully and intentionally did something he thought was prohibited. That in and of itself was enough for the military to administratively process him out. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, just like when you get arrested for DWI, you don't have to be convicted or anything. Just their arrest in and of itself can cause them or allow them to not allow you to re-enlist.
Yeah, that's kind of the military has really, really changed since my days. Yeah, it's very, very anti-alcohol nowadays compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, back then it's like if you don't have a Article 15, you ain't really a real soldier.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't make E5 unless you had at least a couple.
Yeah.
All right, Uncle Bob, I'll continue listening.
Thanks for adding to the show. I gotta zero in here on something. One of the comments. I can find it here. Hang on just a second. Well, let's take a short break, and I'll find it during the break, Jose.
Well, hello. Ray Gibson here to tell you it's officially Frontier season at Nissan Guam. Go test drive a new Frontier and own one with no money down. Plus, Nissan will make the first 3 payments for you. You'll love your new Frontier as much as I do mine. Plus, they're giving away cash, all sorts of prizes. Way too much to share in a 30-second commercial, so visit the showroom or visit the website, NissanGuam.com today.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
I found a post here from Bunker Mano, close-minded approach. Apparently talking about my rap here on the subject.
I saw that come up. He was referencing R. James telling people to pound sand.
Okay. Well, that's good. I was going to get involved, but I guess I don't have to because I don't know how anyone could listen to everything that I said on this subject.
Bunker, I just saved your life.
Yeah. Okay. Next item on the card is, the first item on the card is carpetbaggers versus Guam. And here's what I've got on the card. Of course, I've got systemic racism, Public Law 36-34, carpetbaggers versus Guam, Moylan versus Samantha Titano, Penuelo versus the People's Republic of China, Taibbi versus Garcia and Plaskett, Stanford versus free speech, Scott Adams versus identity politics, McNinch versus separati, and some stuff that's been on the card for quite a while that I might get to someday. Okay, so systemic racism, not a necessity. On a Red Shirt Monday, probably isn't much of a necessity for me to spend a lot of time on systemic racism. I think everybody knows that when it comes to colors, the rice you see at fiestas is the same color as my shirt. And almost anyone who's not colorblind, well, not only colorblind, not blind, would tell you, hey, Bob, that's a pretty orange shirt you've got. It is a pretty orange shirt, isn't it?
I always see it's red, Bob. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I got it. But it's the same way with the rice, and here's a picture of the rice. But when Paul Zerzan said, it ain't rice, it's orange, he was canceled. And we talked a little bit about analogies a few minutes ago. This is the perfect analogy. We know what the truth is, we know what the facts are, but we hear this narrative, and most of the time the narrative beats up on the facts and the truth, and we get stuck with the narrative instead of the facts. We've got people out there telling us that a man can become a woman if he really wants to. Two men can get married. A man can become pregnant. Stuff that we know is as BS can be. But that's the narrative, and it is so powerful that a nominee to the United States Supreme Court, when asked at her confirmation hearing to define a woman, said, I can't, I'm not a biologist. That's a classic example of what I refer to as systemic racism. Don't worry about the facts. Repeat the narrative and you'll be okay. All right, let me look at what I've got here in the Public Law 3634 section of the agenda. I start out with the Contractors Licensing Board, and it has 11 items. It deals with some pretty interesting subjects, and I've given it a star. Yeah. I can't find anything wrong with the notice they put out for Wednesday's meeting. And what a turnaround for the licensing board. Once they got off the buddy system, they've done pretty well, right? And then there's no errors in this. This is a notice of a public hearing in front of Joe San Augustine's hearing, Public Law 47-37, introduced by San Augustine, Santa Claus, Roy Kanata, and Walt Parkinson. It's technical, and it repeals several items in the tax code. I didn't research it to find out what it's about, but I will for tomorrow's show. And the description is relative to excise tax for alcohol, beverages, and tobacco products. Now, we know that there was a scandal that's still a scandal as far as I'm concerned about Rev Tax not collecting the necessary alcohol and tobacco taxes. And BJ Cruz put out an audit report along the same lines today that'll be part of tomorrow's show. So I'll pick this up in that part of the show tomorrow, and we'll spend some time with it. Then I have the Election Commission, Maria Pangilinan, one of the very best administrators in the government of Guam, who ordinarily does a great job on her agendas. She screwed up for the meeting to be held on Thursday because she's got item 10, new business, and she doesn't tell us what the new business is. So if you put new business in your agenda, you better tell us what it is. Otherwise, you don't have new business, and you don't put the words new business in your agenda. It's pretty simple, really. And another outfit that did a really good job of putting together an agenda is Gura. A complicated agenda, and they did it exactly right. The only problem I have with Gura's agenda is that they don't know what their governing organization is called, because they're giving a notice for a March 14 meeting of the Board of Commissioners. There is no such thing as a Board of Commissioners in Gura. There is a commission. And I suppose it's one of those, well, everybody else says Board of Commissioners, so it must be right.
Maybe there's no elections because they're bored of their commissioners.
Yeah. Okay, then we go from there on to carpetbaggers versus Guam. And this, of course, revolves around the subject of, guess what? Abortion. Doctors request to be added as plaintiffs in abortion ban case. Now, this case got turned inside out. The plaintiffs, back in 1990, sued to enjoin the enforcement of Bell's Law. One of the counsel for the plaintiffs was Anita Areola, Bell's daughter. The ACLU chimed in. A lady named Benhoff from Off Island was co-counsel. And they sued the Attorney General, the governor, the hospital, public health. Let's see, Abbott and Costello and two of the Three Stooges, half the Goldilocks and some of the Bears, etc. In other words, they sued a lot of people. These people were the defendants, and they were enjoined from enforcing the law. Now, one of the defendants, the Attorney General, is moving to dissolve the agenda, and the former defendants are now saying, we're with the plaintiffs. We want to maintain the agenda. So they've turned the whole thing inside out. Usually you can tell what to expect from someone in a lawsuit if they're plaintiff or defendant, but it's just backwards here. So here's the story. The American Civil Liberties Union, 2 local attorneys, several obstetric OBGYNs, and a women's rights group have joined in opposition of the request by Doug Moylan to vacate a permanent injunction on the island's decades-old abortion ban and dismiss the case. According to the ACLU, the opposition to Moylan's motion was filed on behalf of Guam licensed physicians, including the only 2 providers of abortion in Guam, and Famalaan Rights, a Guam-based reproductive justice organization. Reproductive justice. In other words, reproductive justice means the ability to kill babies in the womb. That's reproductive justice.
That sounds odd because if you look at it on face value, the lack of or the stopping of reproduction and the justice would be not killing the babies.
Exactly. The permanent injunction against the abortion law has been in place for 3 decades, but if lifted, Public Law 20-134, Bell's Law, would criminalize abortions on Guam and also threatens constitutionally protected speech about abortion. Now, not according to the Attorney General. So let's break for the halftime here, and I got to, of course, criticize the bias of the edit of the story here, as well as making my points.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3
Another one
HD3.
bites the dust. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. A second bank shutting down following Friday's Silicon Valley Bank collapse. Fox's Jackie Ibanez has more on the story.
Washington is scrambling to stop a potential banking crisis. Friday's collapse of Silicon Valley Bank brought down yet another financial firm. The FDIC shut down the New York-based Standard Bank yesterday. Financial regulators say depositors with either bank will still be able to access their money starting today. That includes accounts larger than the federally insured cap of $250,000. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has stressed that taxpayers will not foot the bill. Instead, the FDIC will use its funds to cover the losses, and the agency will auction off assets.
President Biden is slated to address how his administration will avert possible disaster in just hours. At least 8 migrants are dead after 2 suspected smuggling boats capsized off the coast of San Diego Saturday night. James Gartland, San Diego Fire Rescue Lifeguard Division Chief.
If we can continue to provide awareness that every time they get into a panga to come northbound, their lives are at risk.
The Coast Guard and San Diego Fire Rescue are still searching for at least 7 more victims. after several near collisions by U.S. airlines. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy emphasizing on ABC's This Week that America's aviation system remains the so-called gold standard.
We are still the safest aviation system in the world. There are clearly risks that we need to evaluate, and this is why the NTSB is investigating several incidents so it doesn't become something more catastrophic.
As atmospheric river moves out, a new storm is expected to hit California, bringing rain and snow and winds as strong as 50 miles per hour. America's listening to Fox News.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi y Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Lots of firsts at Sunday night's Oscar ceremony, but not for political jabs. Fox's Michelle Polino reports.
Thank you to the Academy. This is history in the making. Thank you.
2 women made history tonight as Michelle Yeoh was the first Asian American to take home Best Actress, while Ruthie Carter has become the first black woman to win 2 Oscars. The clip, courtesy of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Well, Jimmy Kimmel opened the awards with a taped segment where he was ejected from Tom Cruise's Top Gun Maverick flight. He mentioned the Will Smith slap more than once.
No, but seriously, the Academy has a crisis team in place. If anything unpredictable or violent happens during the ceremony, just do what you did last year. Nothing.
And of course, there were mentions of drag queens and the political editing of footage from January 6th.
Stanford University apologizing to a Trump-appointed federal judge after his speech at the school was interrupted by students. Fox's Christina Coleman has the details.
They stated that staff members intervened in inappropriate ways. They said, quote, "What happened was inconsistent with our policies on free speech, and we are very sorry about the experience you had while visiting our campus." Judge Duncan accepted the apology, but stated that he also hopes an apology for the, quote, "mob action" is also offered to the school's Federalist Society, the group that invited him to speak on campus. He also says he would like to know what concrete steps are being taken to ensure this kind of disruption does not happen again.
Fox Digital reporting that the protesters were particularly offended that Judge Kyle Duncan didn't use a transgender sex offender's preferred pronouns in a 2020 legal opinion. Scientists say a giant seaweed bloom may be approaching Florida's Gulf Coast. The seaweed, which is around 5,000 miles wide, is so large it can be seen from outer space. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News.
Well, hello. Ray Gibson here to tell you it's officially Frontier season at Nissan Guam. Go test drive a new Frontier and own one with no money down. Plus, Nissan will make the first 3 payments for you. You'll love your new Frontier as much as I do mine. Plus, they're giving away cash, all sorts of prizes. Way too much to share in a 30-second commercial, so visit the showroom or visit the website, NissanGuam.com today.
Half a day, this is Josh here at APL. Our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more global markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam, Saipan, and on U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to
shoes. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
So, Jose, you know what I'm going to say even before. You always know what I'm going to say even before I say it. So demonstrate that phenomenon.
Sure thing, Bob. If you too would like to get a I Am a Tailgater t-shirt, point your browser to thepoint.gu. That's the official website of this radio station. Click on the picture of the t-shirt with the beard and order that t-shirt. When it arrives, put it on, take a selfie, and send it to the Points WhatsApp at 671-797-8255, and you too can be a part of the Rogues Gallery rotation.
You'll probably be popular beyond your wildest dreams once you get your picture on the Rogues Gallery.
You're going to be fighting them off your lawn.
Yeah, people will stop you when you're out on the street asking you for an autograph. That's the effect of the Tailgaters Rogues Gallery. Okay, we're back here to Carpetbaggers versus Guam. And here's the story that the Post ran. The permanent injunction against abortion ban has been in place for 3 decades, but if lifted, Bell's law would criminalize abortions on Guam and also threatens constitutionally protected speech about abortion. So I guess there's really no need for Judge Gatewood to weigh in on this because the Post has ruled. They could have said arguably threatens constitutionally protected, but they have decided. And you know, when there was a constitutional right to abortion, and it was criminalized to tell people how they could get an abortion, there's a really good argument that that's protected speech. But when there's no more constitutional right, and abortion is, the various aspects of abortion are a crime, does that free speech right still survive? Maybe not. And that's what the difference between a responsible newspaper and somebody who already decided, well, kind of like, I smoke marijuana and I've been doing it for a long, long time. I've been doing it all my life, and I ain't dead yet, and I don't want to stop doing it. And people who don't use it don't understand. Therefore, marijuana is good. That kind of a reasoning process. And that's kind of what the Post is doing here. Threatens constitutionally protected right about abortion. 5 declarations were filed March 8 with the district court as part of the opposition to vacate the permanent injunction. In the motion to intervene. Now, a little law and order notebook here, Jose. We know that lawsuits start out with plaintiffs and defendants, for some kinds of actions as petitioner and respondent. And he started out with plaintiffs and defendants, and they are the case till its end, unless perhaps one or more of the defendant's motions to dismiss is granted and that defendant leaves the case. But there's also a way for people who are not parties to the case to become parties of the case. And that is to file a motion for intervention. And a motion for intervention has to show the judge that the intervener has a substantial interest in the outcome of the case, and perhaps that his or her or their rights won't be adequately protected by the people who are parties to the case, so they should be admitted as interveners. So that's where we are here, and we've got a motion to intervene from Doctors Bliss, Kaneshiro, and Chandini Radu. Now, going back to the title of this item on the card, I characterize it as Carpetbaggers versus Guam. Makes sense, doesn't it? Now, a little historical background here. You know, the classic caricature of a doctor, someone who's got a stethoscope around his neck. Once upon a time, he used to have that silver reflector on the headband, right?
That's how I knew he was a doctor.
Yeah, that's how you knew. He's wearing a nicely pressed white coat. And what's he got in his hand, Jose?
Usually a rubber mallet to check your reflexes.
Well, I'm thinking of something a little bit grander than that. What do you see when a doctor's out on house calls? What's he got in his hand? His bag.
Oh, yes.
The doctor's bag. I mean, that's just classic. The doctor's bag.
The black bag.
The black bag, yeah. And then we don't know what he's got inside there, but he can probably carry everything from dander to fallen arches with the stuff.
Well, we know what these doctors have.
Yeah. So that's the ordinary caricature of a doctor, you know, the stethoscope, the white coat, the black bag. But if you were to see Kaneshiro and Radu walking down the streets in Guam, they would not be carrying a black bag. Flashback to the Civil War. After the Civil War ended in 1865, the national government took over and ran the southern states for various lengths of time, and various lowlifes from the north migrated to the former Confederate states, hoping to profit off the national government's operation of the governments in the South. But they were not wealthy, upstanding people. They were kind of the lower edge of society, and they came really quickly. And back in those days, the cheapest way that you could transport your goods was in a bag made out of carpet. So you take a big piece of rug, you fold it like this, you put a latch in the middle and a wooden handle, put some stuff on the ends, and you pack your stuff in the carpet bag. So these miscreants from the north who came down to capitalize on the defeat of the southern states were called carpetbaggers. Carpetbagger, to call someone a carpetbagger is not to engage in terms of endearment. It is a pejorative. So do we have any pejoratives, any carpetbaggers here? Yeah, Chandini and Radu. They've got their own practices back in Hawaii. They're on the faculty of the University of Hawaii. They were lured out here by Calamity Jane and our governor. They came out here, packed up their carpet bags. They didn't need their medicine bags. Packed up their carpet bags, came out here, were quickly admitted to practice medicine in Guam, were then plaintiffs in the ACLU to enjoin one of the aspects of the chemical abortion law, and they made a hasty retreat back to Hawaii. And because they were successful in their quest to open up the market for chemical abortion, they are now prescribing chemical abortions from Hawaii. So I suppose if you were to look inside their carpet bags, you'd find these very thick prescription pads that they're writing out and sending out here. Yeah. So they've never put their carpet bags away. So now when it comes to Bell's Law, they want to be interveners. And it's early because this just came out today, but I'm waiting for Michael Bavacqua's column on Friday saying, we don't need the colonizer to come out here to tell us about reproductive rights. We can handle this by ourselves. What do you think the chances of that happening, Jose? Yeah. Yeah, colonizers are okay if there are colonizers.
Well, it just reflects the culture of Chamorros, according to Bavacqua.
Of course, yeah. And a little bit of Dr. Rubenstein's paper. Not all of it.
Not all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, so here they are, carpetbaggers, colonizers, etc., coming out here and intervening in a case dealing with Bell's Law. Bell, Areola, right, being one of the more beloved people that ever served in the legislature. Jose, I have a $100 bill that I carry in my billfold. It's the old version. In fact, it's a very old version, me being pretty Moschino. But I carry one of those around for emergencies. But I'll tell you what, I'll give you 48 hours, and if you can find somebody who's going to badmouth Bell Areola, $100 is yours, because you're not going to be able to do it. Yeah. So, the side of the angels are on Bell, or Bell is on the side of the angels. And so is Bell's Law. And so are all of those who are fighting against killing babies in the womb. It is, in fact, a form of murder. And it always takes me back to my rhetorical question. I always state the answer first. And the answer is never. And the question is, when is it okay to take the life of a helpless, innocent human? I just told you what the answer is. You can invent all kinds of sophistry, a woman's right to choose, a woman's bodily autonomy. We don't want to be incubators, on and on and on. But it doesn't change the basic nature of what abortion is. It's killing babies. So we can't make enough arguments here by ourselves, and we can't kill them fast enough by ourselves. And when I say them, what I'm talking about is Chamorro babies. I mean, we got a little bit of genocide going here. If you look at the numbers, there are far more Chamorro babies that are killed in the womb than all the rest put together.
And so it makes you wonder, what do these carpetbaggers have against Chamorros?
But that must be their animus, right? They must not like Chamorros. So it's them. And then they join in plaintiff Dr. William Freeman's opposition to Moylan's motion.
Another prominent Chamorro. Oh, wait, no.
Yeah. Freeman, an OBGYN, was one of the originally named plaintiffs in the case. Although he is now retired and has moved off island, he's done enough damage. He's going to pack his money in his carpet bag, all the money he made taking the lives of helpless, innocent humans, and move back to East Jesus where he'll be more comfortable, right? A more favorable climate for abortionists. Although he's now retired and has moved off island, he spent years on Guam as the island's sole abortion provider. In 2016, I became the island's sole abortion provider following the retirement of the only other physician who performed abortions, Dr. Edmund Griley. So here's the Hall of Shame. William Freeman, Edmund Griley. Dr. Griley and Dr. John Dunlap, both named in plaintiff's case, are deceased. Freeman's declaration stated, Although he's semi-retired in 2018, he maintains an active medical license in Guam and travels back to the island to provide clinical care to several patients. Clinical care, I wonder what that means. Particularly those with high-risk pregnancy, approximately 2 or 3 times a year. I no longer provide abortion care in Guam or anywhere else. However, in the course of providing care to my pregnant patients, I sometimes counsel them about abortion care as an option without any specific intent that they actually obtain an abortion. He explained of his current professional services in the court document. The ability for physicians to counsel their patients on abortion care services criminal under the abortion ban. This is concerning for Freeman. If abortion were to be banned in Guam, I would want to continue to advise my pregnant patients in Guam about their pregnancy options, including Kaneshiro and Redu. I just added that, Jose. Refer them off island for abortion care. However, I'm concerned that I may be prosecuted for violating Bell's Law's prohibition on solicitation of abortion if I do so, he declared. Yeah. In addition, Freeman said that he's looking into our cruelty to animals law to find out what the penalty is for beating a dead horse, especially if the beater is a straw man. Kaneshiro and Redu, who are Hawaii-based OBGYNs, are the only 2 doctors who will provide abortion care to patients in Guam.
I'm so tired of them putting that word care next to abortion.
Really?
It's really obnoxious.
It is. It really is. Care. But it's just like George Orwell said, don't let them take your words away from you. And they've done it. They've taken reproduction, the whole thing.
They're just changing everything, and we're allowing them to do it, so no more.
Yeah, they've changed our whole vocabulary now to make it fit their agenda. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You know, the way that people write these stories, abortion care is abortion. You don't need the word care behind it.
You know, be brave, post, and actually write what an abortion is, and stop using these euphemisms.
Exactly. Kaneshiro and Redu also sought inclusion as plaintiffs in the case with mirrored declarations. Now, when an attorney files affidavits or declarations, do you have this mental image of the client sitting out in the waiting room with a yellow pad and a stubby pencil writing these things down?
Not at all.
No. Who do you think prepares the declarations and affidavits?
An attorney.
An attorney does. Now, attorneys are governed by Rule 11, and what goes into that declaration, you have to be able to stand behind it. You can't just make it up. But lawyers are very much better at drafting affidavits and declarations than laymen are because it's part of their profession. So when you see this in this story, Kaneshiro and Redu also sought inclusion in the case with mirrored declarations. Same declaration, different signatures. Redu has over a decade of experience providing comprehensive reproductive health care, including abortion. There you go. As a physician providing abortion care, she was generally aware of the abortion ban struck down in the 90s and blocked since. Generally aware. But until there was an opportunity for her to get into a court case about it, she didn't much care about it.
Not until the Bois contacted her.
Yeah. But after reviewing what abortion ban means with her attorneys, she too is concerned. Oh, these are such wonderful people. You know, I mean, that's the impression. Yeah, Kaneshiro and Radu, they're okay.
They can't even tell the truth of how they knew about Guam.
No.
They probably found out about Guam 2 years ago.
Yeah, they did. When Calamity Jane and the governor worked with them. It's my quote, "It's my understanding that these prohibitions would apply to abortions provided and obtained in speech about abortion on Guam, but could also apply to abortion care and speech about abortion in Hawaii, where abortion is legal," Radu stated in her declaration. She contended that the local ban would prevent her from providing medication abortion via telemedicine to people on Guam, to counsel pregnant people on Guam about abortion as an option and refer them off-island for care, to advocate for the right to access abortion, and even to provide Guam-based patients with legal abortions in Hawaii. In other words, it's part of her business plan. You know, she doesn't have enough customers in Hawaii, so she wants to get in and develop a new market here. Radu said she has provided abortion for over 65 patients in Guam since January 2022.
She's terminated 65 lives.
Very
of
good.
Helpless, innocent.
Yeah.
animals.
You know how in World War II you'd see fighter planes and fought in this part of the world would have pictures of the Japanese battle flag up on the cowling right behind the propeller. So if there were 5 Japanese battle flags there, that means that pilot shot down 5 Japanese airplanes.
At least for that pilot, those Japanese fighters were able to fight back.
Yeah, they weren't helpless and defenseless. So I wonder if Radu, if we were to see Radu driving down the street in her car, if she would have 65 representatives of babies on the front fender of her car, showing that as a abortionist, she had 65 kills. It's something for her apparently to be very proud of. I want to go on with this. I got so much more to say, but I think we'll take a short break here. And after the break, I'm going to give the mic to another Joe and to Senator Duenas, and then I'll come back to Kaneshiro. I can't let Kaneshiro and Radu get off without this. I don't know if you heard what I was talking about, Jose, but I'm wondering if Kaneshiro's Cadillac on the front fender has a picture of 65 babies representing the 65 kills that she made. You know, like the fighter planes in World War II.
It'd be great advertisement for her.
It would.
And a badge of honor, right?
It really would, yeah. Okay, let's head for Wrigley Field, and we'll come back to another Joe and Senator Duenas.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup.
Including working with SBA or GITA.
Banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Jose, have you ever seen a calliope?
Actually, I Something similar.
Yeah.
It has a huge, lots of. Well, this one's with the bells, right? The calliope.
No, it's got pipes,
Yeah.
and a real calliope was steam operated. Yeah.
Stone Mountain has one.
Yeah,
In Georgia.
And you back in the day, you'd find calliopes right next to the merry-go-round, and they played this classic merry-go-round music. And I wish we didn't have this Facebook restriction about copyrighted music, because just as the most dangerous man in the room has his theme song, so should Another Joe.
Right.
The calliope should be Another Joe. Sorry about that, Another Joe. We'll see if we can work something out for you. Okay. Go ahead and tell me about carpetbaggers.
Well, Uncle Bob, I'll tell you, I'm kind of hung up on this thing, merry-go-round. I kind of like the idea of learning to ride real horses, but no, I bet I know what's in there. What's in their carpet bags? Kind of sheer and reduced carpet bag. Uncle Bob, I think they would be ladies to hula dance from Hawaii, and medical abortion pills.
Yeah.
That seemed like a good guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, what I wanted to bring up was I'm starting to get stage ready again.
You wanted to bring up carpetbaggers, remember?
Yes. Well, with these carpetbaggers, I'm wondering if there are any good senators in the 37th Guam legislature who are ready, willing, and able to introduce pro-life laws. I wonder if there's any laws pertaining to abortion right now in the works. I don't know. Little birds are going around saying all kinds of stuff, but can't say for sure until we see a press release of the Bob. So having said that, I'm just hoping that there's some really good senators in the 37th Guam legislature that are ready, willing, and able to introduce pro-life, anti-abortion laws. So, having said that, I think I'll just give the opportunity for others to chime in, and I'll just keep listening about.
Well, Another Joe makes a good point. A point that I made earlier that senators should introduce a bill to resurrect Bell's law or whatever, to stop abortion, because 65 babies are dead now because at Redu's hands, because we haven't done anything. We're waiting for the courts.
And again, we sit here demagoguing about our school situation in the schools, talking about the families here on Guam, but 65 dead. How many dead and injured do we have from our bad schools and from abuse on Guam? I'm not saying that they should be equitable, but 65 dead babies.
Yeah.
That's not an outrage for anyone?
65 kills.
That's just her.
Yeah, that's just her. That's not Kaneshiro. Okay, let's let Senator Chris Duane. I love the way Chris starts his calls. Go ahead, Chris. I'm ready.
Your Honor, Honorable Marine, Honorable Senator, my favorite talk show host. I took an opportunity.
Thanks a lot for calling, Chris. It's always good to hear from you.
Thank you.
You wanted to say more than that? That would have been more than enough, Chris. But no, I'm just pulling your leg here. Go ahead, Chris.
I got the horn. All right. Your Honor, I took an opportunity to call during this time to kind of understand something on the basis of. I want to do this in a two-part question. One is with the current court case that's being dealt with, how is it that the broad invitation exists here? It almost seems like it's a debate on the law as to whether the injunction should remain or should be lifted. It seems like it's turning into a debate, because I'm saying this because I have callers into my office asking for their opportunity to enter, and what their standing is, because there's several dates that are placed in terms of the opinion. It seems like it's turning into a public hearing as opposed to a court proceeding on whether or not the law either exists now based on Roe Wade reversal and what's been happening, what has happened on the Supreme Court, and the efficacy of the law. And that's why I want to comment on the second part, because I know there's been some criticism on non-introduction, and I want to address that. But can we get the first part done first?
All right. Well, this is complicated because there are two court cases. We've got the district court, Judge Francis Gatewood, who is the chief judge of the district court. And there's a motion pending before her brought by our attorney general to dissolve the injunction entered against Bell's Law back in 1990. Right. And those who are defending the injunction there, in other words, they're saying don't dissolve the injunction. That's the governor, Redu and Kaneshiro want to get into the game, et cetera. So there's that case. And then we have this cockeyed, horrible declaratory judgment procedure before our Supreme Court. That's the other one. And I don't blame you for being confused, because nothing but confusion can come from that mechanism. There are no parties. There is no case or controversy. It's just something that somebody invented to give us an opinion of what three justices on the Supreme Court think the law is. And they are not addressing the same question as the district court. They're addressing two collateral questions, both of which they should have declined jurisdiction on, because there isn't anything to decide until the district court is done. But they waded into it anyhow. And perhaps as an indication of their own inability to decide what to do, they've thrown open the floodgates, because ordinarily you can't file an amicus brief unless you file a motion with the court for leave to file an amicus brief. That's what I had to do with my amicus brief in that crazy suit that Levin filed. So this time the Supreme Court is saying, for this so-called declaratory judgment, anybody who wants to can file an amicus brief without going through the process of asking for leave. So they're turning a horrible judicial procedure. You wouldn't think they could make it any worse, but they're turning it into a judicial free-for-all, because any one of your constituents who can put together something that says amicus brief on the top and pony up the filing fee can probably go over and file it at the Supreme Court.
Well, that's the problem I have with this whole process, Your Honor, because first of all, I'm really, really surprised they even accepted that, because there's, I mean, as a matter of kind of judicial prudence, if I could use a term, a matter that's already exists before a district court, you would have thought they would have deferred on the issue, but having not deferred on the issue, like I said, it almost seems weighted, because it's really only going to be attorneys and individuals with a compelling interest who would have a preponderance before the court. Because like I said, I mean, I have several individuals who have called the office saying, when can we file our pleading? I mean, they didn't even use those terms, because like I said, it looks like a public hearing. If you look at the April 14th date, it's like general public. So how does general public even know how to prepare a matter to bring before the courts in terms of preying on the court for a purpose? And especially since really the question is not necessarily about pro or con on the issue. It's about a matter of law.
Now, Chris, stop and step back for a minute and consider the as you say, that anybody can file on the 14th of April. Which side of the game do you think this favors?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. You could see the pile on already. Yeah. And that's why I'm going to lead to my next question, because I need to understand, because I understand the criticism and the like, but if we can finish this point, obviously it's a very favorable presentation before the Supreme Court, even though it's a matter in district court already, and I don't even know that. I would wonder, would that even play into the district court's decision, or do they basically isolate themselves from that matter because that's not before them?
Well, the governor has filed a motion with the district court saying the district court should abstain until after the Supreme Court rules on what they characterize as a matter of state law. So the smart money here who has watched this go on label what the governor is doing as forum shopping. In other words, looking for a court, the court that you think you might have the best chance of getting a good result on. And also the word end run has been used to describe what the governor's doing. And unfortunately, it appears that the Supreme Court is amenable to that sort of thing.
Now, I want to lead into my reason for making the presentation when asked the question in the Post as to it's a legal matter. My reasoning was, and now I want this question because I'm prepared. I was of the thinking, especially when I presented before all of the multi-denominational congregation that was assembled no less than 6 times that I presented at when the Heartbeat Act was on board and we were trying to pass that. And there was this pending decision before the Supreme Court, and they made their decision. Which would we prefer? Which law would be stronger? And so many people actually were like wanting to jettison the Heartbeat Act in favor of Bell's Law because of the fact that it met, just like Tim Rohrer says, more of the absolutism of us who believe in anti-abortion to its fullest extent. However, when we discussed these issues, there was the discussion of don't introduce a bill simply because it would render the case moot because now it's with the legislature.
Too many lawyers running around, lawyers without portfolio, Chris. Introducing a bill doesn't moot anything. If the law passed and resurrected Bell's Law, yeah, then the case is moot. But it's not moot because somebody introduces a bill.
No, but isn't it argued before the court if the removal of the injunction to be done as a matter of course because of the Supreme Court decision? Doesn't the court now, the Supreme Court or the district court now have a reason to say there's no longer a reason to entertain this anymore because the legislature is taking up the issue?
No. The fact that a bill is introduced is interesting, but meaningless. If the legislature passed a bill and the bill became law, yeah, then and spoke to the abortion issue, yeah, then you're looking at mootness. But the fact that a bill was introduced, no, that's why I say, sounds like we got too many lawyers without portfolios running around giving legal advice.
Well, certainly then I will take up the issue. There was a lot of confusion in this issue, especially the way it's been brought forward and what has effect and what affects what in terms of the introduction of legislation, in terms of what's before the courts at this point in time. And so certainly you'll see something coming from me soon.
That's a good idea, Chris.
Okay, thanks a lot, Your Honor.
Always good talking to you. Okay, so we got to go to Churchill Downs here.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagatna location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Chamorro Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi y Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Okay, so here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. 6 furlongs. I crossed the finish line to wrap up another first day here, another red shirt day on Tall Tales. We got 4 whole days left this week. We're doing great. I'm so happy. So we left off with Redu and her boasting. Redu said she has provided medication abortion to over 65 patients in Guam since January 2022. I'd like to see a picture of her car with with her battle stars on the car. And, getting into women's fashion. I understand that when Redu wears slacks or any kind of trousers, it's always braces, always suspenders. You want to know why? She used to have a belt, but she cut 65 notches in her belt, and now her belt won't hold up her trousers. What a thing to brag. Yeah, I've done 65 here. I've taken the life of 65 innocent, helpless babies who never had a chance at life.
She's going to have a statue of her, and on the bottom of the base is going to be the skulls of all these babies.
Really?
Just to show her triumph over pregnant reproductive justice.
Reproductive justice, yeah. Okay, now the story after Redu's boast here, the story goes on to say, medication abortion is a method to terminate a pregnancy in which medication is prescribed to an eligible patient.
I know I keep interrupting with these things, the euphemism. You know what terminates a pregnancy, Bob? Birth. Why don't they say what an abortion does? It terminates the life of a baby, of a human, not terminates a pregnancy.
Absolutely. This service has enabled our patients in Guam and those Hawaiian Islands where abortion access is minimal or non-existent to access care they need without unnecessary delay, without having to fly hundreds of miles and potentially staying overnight at a hotel. God, why didn't they...
Like the 19th floor has ever been bad for anyone.
Yeah. If that had just staying at a hotel, why didn't they say that before? Now I understand. My God, condemn someone to staying at a hotel, Jose?
Makes you want to identify as a woman, Bob?
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. And without incurring travel costs, child care costs, lost wages, or jeopardizing their ability to keep their abortion decision confidential. Now, why would they want to do that? And she forgot to mention, and you could do it at home or in the hotel room. And the nice thing about it is that when the dead baby comes out of your body, you can be sitting on the toilet and just flush the dead baby down the toilet. You don't have to pay for any burial expenses or anything.
We're not allowed to put down grease or oils or anything else down our drains, but an aborted baby's okay.
It's okay, yeah. And I wonder if we need to get the waterworks involved. Maybe the waterworks should file a petition to intervene in a district court case and an amicus brief in the Supreme Court case. Anti-abortion. Our sewers won't handle it at the rate. With a sharpshooter like Redu, we're going to have serious problems with our sewers. Kaneshiro in her declaration noted at the time it was extremely rare for her and her colleagues to provide abortion care to a Guam patient, roughly one a year, usually for a diagnosis of a fetal anomaly. After Freeman retired, I saw firsthand the impact of the lack of abortion access in Guam. Between mid-2018 and January 22, I estimate that my colleagues and I saw approximately 10 to 15 abortion patients from Guam. Market share.
I want to remind people that the pro-abortion argument all throughout the years of Roe versus Wade was legal, safe, and rare.
Yeah. But But it's like everything else, you know. In the beginning, yeah, we are attracted to people of the same sex, but we don't want anything. Just leave us alone. Let us be. Don't discriminate, and everything will be fine. And we went to Herman marrying Henry, transgenders. Polyamory is the next thing on there's no stopping it. So we went from safe, legal, and rare to anytime, anywhere, for no reason at all.
Or there just wasn't enough dead babies on Guam.
Exactly, yeah. And then, of course, we always have to bring her into this. Attorney Vanessa Williams, it's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. What are we going to have for dinner? Famalawan Rights co-founder and co-executive director Stephanie Lorenzo, in her declaration, shared the birth of the nonprofit organization came from a horrific experience a 12-year-old girl endured in 2019. In 2019, I learned in the news about a 12-year-old girl on Guam who was raped and impregnated. It was a reality check, as my friends and I realized that we did not have any abortion providers in Guam, and it would take extraordinary measures for that girl to get an abortion. The story motivated the two young women who were part of the Guam Youth Congress.
A par for the course.
Yeah. To form the Women's Rights Organization and call for others to join the effort a year later. Lorenzo stated that as of 2019, Guam remains in the top 10% of teen birth rates when compared, I think that's BS. Because we've seen the statistics, most of the women are not teenagers. Most of them are married women in their 20s and 30s. A nice try, Stephanie Lorenzo. And then we have the second highest number of rapes per capita in the United States. So the way to cut down our rape rate is to kill more babies and make it easier to kill babies.
And they found that the number one way for someone to hide a rape was to bring the victim to an abortion clinic and silently get rid of the evidence.
Absolutely.
We had a caller tell us that when the abortion doctor told her that when that blue lounge was shut down,
yeah,
his business suffered greatly.
Yeah, because the prostitutes could no longer get abortions. Famalawan Rights is focusing on addressing the need for accessible reproductive health care on Guam through advocacy and education. Its mission would be to jeopardize should the permanent injunction on the abortion ban be lifted. It will undermine the core mission of Famalawan Rights. And Famalawan, for the uninitiated, is Palauan is the word for woman in Chamorro, plural Famalawan. I suppose you could use Sia, which means they. I don't know. I don't think Chamorro language is very woke. It will undermine the core mission of Famalawan Rights members would struggle in how we can talk about abortion, let alone advocate in favor of abortion rights and destigmatizing it as a health care option. Youth Congress. But crucially, it would have a devastating impact on people in Guam, including our members, who may become pregnant and seek abortion. We advocate for safe, legal, accessible abortion in Guam, and the ban would be the opposite of that. So there you have it.
Imagine, and why not people do this? When they go in front of the legislature for these hearings, like the castle law, forget about is your life in danger at the time you have to make these decisions. Just say, I made a choice. And I made a choice under my right, because this is my property, to shoot and kill that person, even if they're running away.
Yeah.
Because that's my property. It's
Yeah.
my choice.
Exactly.
And you shouldn't. And instead of saying that to kill that person, we should advocate for safe, legal termination or protection or defense of my home.
Maybe revenge, safe, legal revenge.
Because every day we make decisions in our lives, and we all have choices. The guy who cut me off on the road, yeah, maybe in my mind I'm thinking I would love to wreck his car also, but I make the choice not to do that. And that's the same thing with babies. You make the choice not to kill them.
Yeah. Yeah, and most people make the choice to never kill anyone. and somehow I still have a hard time getting my head around it. You know, if you ask anybody, is it all right to kill another human? Well, no, it's not. I you know, sometimes maybe like if you're a police officer and it's the line of duty, or you're in the Army and you're in combat. But no, as a general rule, it's not right to kill a human being. Well, how about if the human being, if you can't actually see the human being that you're killing, would that be okay? Yeah, that'd be all right. So if you had a 45 pistol and a blindfold and you really wanted to do away with somebody, point the gun at him, put the blindfold on, pull the trigger, no harm, no foul.
Oh, so instead of the person getting shot with the blindfold, the ones with the rifles are getting the blindfold.
Exactly. That would make it all right.
Yeah. It makes it right.
Because that's the only difference. You can't see the victim when you're talking about an abortion. That's the big difference.
You can't hear them either.
You can't see, you can't hear. So, you know, it's so much easier to make up all these false arguments that abortion is not taking a helpless, innocent life. All right, it's about time for me to say goodbye to the president. I got somebody here in the green room. I guess I don't have time, huh? Okay, let me say goodbye to our president then. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3. 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The U.S. government assuring customers at Silicon Valley Bank that they will be able to access their deposits as early as today. The nation's 16th largest bank collapsing Friday. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen tells CBS's Face the Nation that it's vital to keep SVB's issues from spreading to other banks.
We want to make sure that the troubles that exist at one bank don't create contagion to others that are sound, and a goal always of supervision and regulation is to make sure that contagion can't occur.
This is the second largest bank collapse in U.S. history. At least 8 migrants have died following the capsizing of 2 smuggling boats off the coast of San Diego Saturday night. James Gartland, San Diego Fire Rescue Lifeguard Division Chief.
This is the one of the worst maritime smuggling tragedies that I can think of in California, certainly here in the city of San.
The search is on for at least 7 more victims. More storms expected to hit California. Fox weather meteorologist Max Gordon reports from Pajaro, California.
Back here in Pajaro, lots of folks have now had to move to shelters. Officials telling people here that the water is now unsafe to drink because it's been tainted by the floodwaters.
Jamie Lee Curtis winning Best Supporting Actress Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once at this year's Oscars.
My mother and my father were both nominated for Oscars in different categories. I just won an Oscar.
Sound courtesy of ABC and the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. America's listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network, the Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day, going far beyond the headlines, tapping into the massive reporting resources of Fox News to provide a full picture of the news of the day.
I'm Dana Perino.
I'm Brett Baer.
I'm Maria Bartiromo.
I'm Brian Kilmeade, and this is the Fox News Rundown.
Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, this is Trey Gowdy, host of the Trey Gowdy Podcast. Every Tuesday, you'll hear what's on my mind. Plus, every Thursday, there's a special bonus episode where we answer the questions that are on your mind. Make sure to spend your Tuesdays and Thursdays with Trey. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. Hope to see you.
America's listening to Fox News.
Fox obtaining video of a migrant rush at the southern border near El Paso Sunday afternoon. Fox's Bill Malugin has the details.
These are predominantly Venezuelan migrants. They are eventually met by CBP in the middle of the bridge where they were blocked. Barbed wire set up, gate closed, CBP officers responding en masse. Federal sources telling me a CBP special response team responded to that bridge in an effort to block those migrants from crossing over. We're told at some point crowd control measures were used.
The cause of the rush is unknown. A cold case in Maryland has been solved. More from Fox's Paul Stevens.
DNA technology and genetic research helping to finally ID the killer of 16-year-old high school student Pamela Conyers. She was found strangled to death back in 1970 after disappearing from a local shopping mall in Millersville, Maryland, outside Baltimore. She stopped at that mall after attending a high school pep rally. Her body was found 4 days later in a wooded area near the family car she'd been driving. Her killer, now ID'd as Forrest Clyde Williams III, who died of natural causes in 2018. Police are not ruling out the involvement of any other suspects, so the case is not yet considered closed.
Michigan State instituting new building access restrictions 1 month after a mass shooting on campus.
Michigan State University students returning from spring break will notice that buildings on campus will be more difficult to access. It's been 1 month since 3 students were killed and 5 others were hurt in a mass shooting there. The restricted access to buildings means they will require a key card to enter during evening, overnight, and weekend hours. Meanwhile, police have released new details about the February 13th shooting, including a timeline and a note from the suspected gunman. The gunman was confronted by police more than 3 hours after the attack, and he took his own life.
That's Fox's Tanya J. Powers. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News.
KFC's Lent menu is filled with so many seafood options, it's enough to keep you going for the entire Lenten season. They're all here. Popcorn shrimp, fish fillets, shrimp and crab Killiquin wraps, and our famous KFC shrimp burger. And now you can mix and match chicken and fish in both 6 and 12-piece family meals with sides and biscuits. KFC's Lent menu is available for a limited time at all KFC restaurants and for delivery at KFCGuam.com or WhatsApp 300-3278. KFC, it's finger-licking good for Lent.
Adopt U.S. Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show. There were two pieces in the Daily Mail this past week of, out of nowhere, whites being attacked by a black person, beaten, quite beaten, screaming about white supremacy, and in one case screaming on behalf of BLM. It is unreported in the American press. They happened in America. Daily Mail is British. Can you imagine if there had been an attack on a black screaming some Ku Klux Klan motto, how much it would be reported in the United States as evidence of rampant white supremacy and racism leading to violence? The data are, as everyone except leftists acknowledge, which means the entire American lying press. President Trump was entirely accurate about describing the mainstream media as the lying media. That's what they do. And they're unaware of it because truth is not a value. So if on the left, so if you don't tell the truth, it doesn't bother you because you're only bothered by something you hold as a value. The whole George Floyd thing was an enormous eruption of left-wing anger and emotion. That's what it was, an eruption of emotion. It doesn't deny the tragedy of his death, but it also doesn't deny how much the police actually tried peacefully and gently to get him into a police car. One coroner, at least, did not argue that the knee on the neck was what killed him. It was probably the amount of fentanyl in him. But it doesn't matter. You see, when any left-winger hears what I just said, their reaction is not, is it true? It is, can we use it against the person who said it to show that he is racist? Truth is not a left-wing value. These are quite remarkable stories. These are horrible beatings. There are videos of them, because there are videos of just about everything. And of course, it will simply go unreported. New York City to pay record settlement to George Floyd protesters. It's from National Review. Protesters who were restrained with zip ties, battered with batons, and pepper spray will be paid millions in a new settlement reached with New York City and the New York Police Department. So what does this tell New York police? Don't restrain leftists. End of issue. Only restrain rightists. According to documents filed in federal court on Tuesday, the city has agreed to pay out a total of $7 million to the protesters, which comes out to $21,500 each, the highest per-person settlement award in a mass arrest class action lawsuit. So that's a great lesson. Be a left-wing protester, which often descends into violence on certainly race matters, and you get paid. That's a great deal. On June 4th, 2020, this was 2020, time of the worst eruptions, about 300 people marched through the Bronx to protest the killing of George Floyd. According to a lawsuit, as an 8 p.m. curfew approached, police used their bicycles to form a wall and prevent the protesters from moving forward, while other officers pushed from behind, a tactic known as kettling. Just after the 8 p.m. curfew, quote, according to Human Rights Watch, which is a left-wing organization, the police moved in on the protesters unprovoked and without warning, wailing their batons, beating people from car tops, shoving them down to the ground, and firing pepper spray in their faces. Incidentally, will the family of Ashley Babbitt get money for her unjustified, not pepper spray, not being tied up in some way, but being murdered? Ashley Babbitt was murdered, not merely killed. No, of course not. The United States is a left-wing theocracy. because leftism has a new religion. Bill de Blasio had instituted the curfew. Isn't that funny? Bill de Blasio. Do you realize that within a few years, I'm not sure he will merit mention in the in Trivial Pursuit? Who was the mayor of New York City during the 2020 riots? No one will get it. Some will say Alan Estrin. Argued in an emergency executive order that it was necessary to protect the city and the residents from severe endangerment and harm to their health, safety, and property. Okay, yeah. Now,